for having me. Jim, it's been a minute since I've seen you in the flesh. What's up, man?
In the flesh.
Yeah, it's close. Close.
You may be the first person I've heard to say you're excited to hear about Sitecore upgrades. So
it seems you
The
don't
first
you
person
know
is not
nothing
a
about
Sitecore
Sitecore
sales
upgrades.
rep. The first person is not a sales rep. That is, you mean? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. So there's I think on the agenda, there's a virtual reception for 10 minutes, and this is what we're doing. And then around 5:40, you're gonna start the session, and then we'll do like a Q&A, and then we'll do at the end the Sitecore stand-up that we do usually on the chat. So just to set expectations, we have like 6 minutes or 5 minutes. We can continue chatting, and then we can get started in 5 minutes with Mr. Zach. Very good.
Ben, I didn't have a chance to get set up, so I'm not going to join you this time, brother. But I will miss you in PR land.
No worries, I got a new friend in here.
You got new friends, man?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Who else is
Got
on VR?
Steven in here with me.
Nice.
Nice.
Maybe I'll try.
Dennis, is this streamed also on different channels? I know you have this nice setup.
No, we're just doing it on the replay on the YouTube channel.
Cool.
We could also do a stream. You know, we could probably. I have a restream account, so we could do that going ahead. It's a good idea, actually.
Oh wait, it's very risky if Zach's gonna screw it up.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Don't do it live.
Zach might say some things that'll get us banned from YouTube, and
I'm full of copyrighted music and Alex Jones style commentary.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I wasn't able to attend the Atlanta Sitecore user group last week, but barring any like Delta variant craziness, do you guys expect to be in person again at the next one, or?
Trying to get that set up right now. I'm just looking at some options there. We might do it at the TG office. Good offer from Nabil there on that. We're entertaining some other venues downtown Toronto as well, and I'm still going to work out some of the details, but we actually might also have a sponsor who so far will remain nameless. We might give us some food and things like that. So that would also be fun. So yeah, it could be a sold out thing because I'm itching to see people.
Yeah, if you do it in person, pretend like this presentation didn't happen today, so I can try to get my company to expense my trip up to Toronto. I've never been. I want to.
Oh wow, that'd be amazing.
Never saw.
We don't have like a crazy Delta cases here in Toronto or in Ontario.
Don't jinx it.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think you're letting us up there yet, though. Right? Isn't the border still closed?
No, we're letting you up there. You're not letting us down there. That's how that's going.
So
if you're
Zach
double
won't be
back,
able to come back. You get to keep him.
Yeah, you need to be double vax to come here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it may be a blessing for America, North America, that I get North America. United States. Did I just claim United States to be North America? That's embarrassing. Man, such an American thing to do.
Yeah, it's very empire-ish of you.
Off to a good start.
Steven,
Yes.
Exactly.
Steven, you're in
Stop
that
the
one-
recording.
Hey, Steven, you're in that one spot that you can't be in. Thank you.
The projectionist booth.
The spot right in front of the camera, the one that
Yep.
I typically find myself in, and Ben tells me the same thing.
Well, so I didn't realize until today that the camera's only visible to me, so it's not like anybody else knows where it is.
Oh,
You have any new faces today?
This is my first time joining a SUG presentation of any kind. So, Zach, no pressure, but
Why did you
don't
come
screw
then?
this up.
What's up? What's up? What brings you here, man?
I work with Zach, so I'm here to support the cause and been part of actually a few Sitecore upgrade projects. And now I know what to avoid. So, good stuff. Also trying to bank a trip to Toronto or Canada at some point, selfishly.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Okay, welcome to the group.
This is my first
Thank you.
time to Toronto Sitecore user group, so thank you for having me.
Oh,
Oh,
very
welcome.
nice. Very nice, Isal. What do both of you do? For whom?
I'm technical
Yeah.
architect at Wandel,
Yes.
and I was also in the same boat as, sorry, I cannot pronounce your last name, and your first name is not on the screen. But same thing here. We are in the talks with a couple of our clients who have accrued enough technical debt to have them earn an upgrade. So I have done few upgrade projects in past, but not one with upgrading to Sitecore 10. So hoping to get some pointers.
Very nice. Okay, very good. And you as well, what do you do with Zach?
I kind of thread the needle. I'm on a Sitecore delivery project right now. Do both Sitecore and Microsoft work in a kind of staffing capacity. So I work with a lot of Sitecore delivery teams, but do not actually do any technical development myself, more in an oversight capacity. So here to learn what to say to not sound dumb in meetings.
Explains why you don't know anything about Sitecore upgrade. You didn't see what's under the hood.
Yeah.
All right, very good. So I think we are at time. So Zach, let's get started. I'm gonna share your screen and let's do it.
All right. 1 second. From beginning. Let me move everyone's camera so I can have my notes up. All right. The classic question, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
And we can hear you as well. And you're not on mute.
Can you see me? Am I on mute? What else? Do I have a shirt on? Okay. Anyways, everyone, my name is Zach Gay, and I'm a senior tech consultant over at Perficient. I've been with them for over 4 years full time, about 5 years if you include an internship. And in that time, I have completed 2 Sitecore upgrades, and I think the one word I would use to describe them is fun. Some phrases I've said to myself while doing them is, casual things you say, like, these are the worst days of my life. Why is life so terrible? Why must this be? Why is this? And I've come to realize as I've done these Sitecore upgrades, they don't have to be as painful as people say. I think we just have to be mindful with how we architect our solutions and how we dictate the upgrade process will go. There's several different routes you can take during the upgrade process, and what I hope to do for you all is kind of give you a prescription of, these are the things that worked for me. These are some lessons I've learned, and just how to do better and make them faster. No one likes to do upgrades, I feel like. So if you can minimize the amount of time you have to do an upgrade, the better your life will be. So, disclaimer, I know you mentioned that you were interested in hearing some tidbits about upgrading the Sitecore 10. I personally have not upgraded the Sitecore 10 using containers and whatnot. My experience as of right now is going from Sitecore 8 to 9. However, pretty much everything I'm going to say is going to apply, but I'm not going to include tidbits about what to do with a Docker Compose file or Kubernetes and whatnot. Things like that I don't have experience in. So if anyone on this call has experience in it, please hop in at any point and provide lessons you've learned related to that topic. With that being said, every solution is unique. So the upgrade process is going to be unique to your solution as well. There's a lot of common things in them, but really you get to choose how you do your upgrade. So before we get into what's involved with an upgrade, let's talk about why would one even want to upgrade in the first place. So the first reason is support dries up. Support for older versions ends eventually. A very important perk you want to keep alive is the ability to open up Sitecore support tickets in times of need. And as you can see here on the screenshot here on the right, mainstream support for any given version lasts for 3 years post-release. And that level of support decreases over time. So keeping your site up to date with the latest version of Sitecore or even a newer version of Sitecore helps provide you with the best support that Sitecore can provide. Also, everyone loves new features, right? So with new versions of Sitecore, you're going to get new features. A certain feature for one of my clients that I did an upgrade for that they really wanted was Sitecore Forms. And if you don't know what that is already, it's a very easy drag and drop tool so that content authors can create various forms without the assistance of a developer at all times. Newer versions also come out of the box with external authentication support. So if your company is using Azure AD, for example, you can just add in the plugin that hooks up to Identity Server, and it lets your Sitecore users use their Azure AD credentials that they use for their other companies' websites or internal sites to get into Sitecore. A feature like that is not that important to a lot of people, but to the Sitecore admins of your company, they're going to appreciate that because then they don't have to continuously go in and unlock Sitecore accounts that are different from Azure AD or whatever external authenticator they have. What else? Let's see. So on top of features like that, newer versions come with support for newer technical expertise, not newer, but for example, new tech pieces that are supported by newer versions of Sitecore are SXA or JSS. So if your company's developers are better at JavaScript, maybe you'll want to upgrade your solution to allow them to start doing stuff with JSS. And that'll be a little more maintainable for them instead of requiring a full, fully involved .NET backend engineer. Also, optimization for the cloud. Sitecore 9 onwards is optimized for the clouds on Azure PaaS. So the typical benefits of Azure PaaS applies here. Deployments for production environments can be much safer due to the use of blue-green deployments. Guaranteed uptime from Azure is a nice bonus there. So nobody wants to stay up in the middle of the night doing deployments, and getting Sitecore up to speed and more optimized for the cloud is going to allow for that.
If I may add one thing, Zach,
Sure.
to one of the reasons to upgrade, of course, security is part of support, of course. But I mean, recently we have a government client who is on 7.1, and we've been trying to convince them to upgrade for several years now. And sadly, last Friday they got hacked. So they got a ransomware, and when we did the forensics, it's because of the security holes in the previous Sitecore version, and also the OSs and SQL Server. So that's a very important reason why we should upgrade as well. Just want to mention that.
Wow, that's
Ouch.
really unfortunate for them.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
It's
So
a wake-up call for them, definitely. But sadly, they don't believe it until they see it.
hasn't bothered us yet. I guess we won't upgrade. And then once everything crashes, wish we upgraded.
Exactly.
You don't want to be one of them. So that's a good point to bring up. Security concerns. I will add that to the list. That is a good one. So now that we've talked about why someone would want to upgrade, let's start jumping into the steps involved in the upgrade process. So the first one we're going to talk about here is database upgrades. So obviously the first question you would want to ask is, where do I find the upgrade steps? And turns out that's actually very easy to find. Sitecore provides documentation on how to upgrade to each version. Simply navigate to the Sitecore downloads page of the version that you're upgrading to, and the instructions will be right there. So you can see here on the screenshot, I've squared off with a perfect square the upgrade guides. It's important to note that you navigate to the version that you're upgrading to and not the version you are currently on. You're not going to find the upgrade instructions for the version you're going to by going to the older version. The more versions of Sitecore that you upgrade past, the more likely it is that you'll have to perform multiple database upgrades. For example, upgrading from Sitecore 7 to Sitecore 10 will require to upgrade to some intermediate version in between the two in order to get all the way to Sitecore 10. However, if you're upgrading from Sitecore 8.1.3 to, say, Sitecore 9.2, it's a straight shot. You only have to go through this process once. As you can see, that was one of my upgrades for my client was that specific version. I didn't just pull that out of nowhere. I don't know those off the top of my head. So once you've gotten the instructions, I recommend doing kind of a dry run on your local machine of running through them. Install a fresh instance of the Sitecore version that you're on currently, and then run through those upgrade instructions. If you haven't downloaded these instructions before, you'll be kind of surprised at how it's set up. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure novel based on what features of Sitecore you are using and whatnot. So as you go through this dry run, I recommend kind of writing down the exact steps you took so you don't have to go through and do the choose your own adventure bit again. You don't have to make those decisions. You've already made them. You already have them written down. You don't have to think when you do it again. Also, when you do this dry run, install your local Sitecore instance to a very short file path. The upgrade process, when it's running through its update tool, it'll create some long file names. And as we all know, Windows really doesn't like long file names. You can hit up a limit and it will cause the upgrade process to fail. So don't do what I did, which was not install it to a short path. Also, another lesson that I learned, don't run this upgrade process on Azure hosted databases. It's painfully slow. So you'll want to pull down a copy of the database and then upgrade it. This also brings me to my next point. Never do in-place upgrades. And when I say in-place upgrades, I mean running through these upgrade steps on the databases that are currently in use on your live site. If you fail, your site's down. And if you do this in the production environment, you're going to be losing your online presence and potentially revenue at that point. So what do you do? I recommend setting up separate servers and databases specifically for upgrading. After the upgrade is complete, you'll just flip the switch, so to speak, and point all internet traffic to your new servers. However, this begs the question, how do you get your custom curated content that doesn't exist in the default Sitecore install over to these upgraded databases? And what I recommend is one of two routes. Route one involves using packages, Sitecore Sidekick, or PowerShell to move content from the currently in-use environment and moving it to your separate servers. However, this can be somewhat error-prone because you are literally moving the content yourself. So if you miss something, you'll find out pretty quick when you go into the site and see, like, why is none of this working? Why are my forms not there? It's because you probably didn't migrate it over. Route two involves pointing your separate server to a copy of your database and then running through the upgrade instructions. This will ensure that you're not skipping any content. However, in my opinion, I really like route one because you're just starting with fresh databases that are compatible with the new version of Sitecore, and you're just moving over the custom content that you need. In both of these scenarios, though, you're going to require a content freeze of some sort. You'll enforce a content freeze on your content authors, and at that point, you'll make a copy of the database and then run through route one or two. And once the servers are back up, you can allow content authors to get back in. If for whatever reason, some things are business critical and you cannot do a content freeze, you'll need to make a mark on when you did a copy of your database. And I would recommend just having your content authors track what they were making in that time. But also you'll just need to be conscious that you'll need to move that new custom content post freeze over. I find that really complicated and really frustrating to do. So enforce a content freeze. It'll make your life easier. Any questions there so far? Awesome. All right, so the next step I want to talk about is Sitecore config patching. What you'll want to do is move all your custom settings in the Sitecore config into patch files if they haven't been done already. And to do this, I recommend you download a text compare tool like Beyond Compare, for example. I really like Beyond Compare. Then what you're going to do is download the old vanilla version of Sitecore config. So if say you were upgrading from 8.13 to 9.2, you'll download the vanilla 8.13 config, and you'll do a text compare with the configuration and production of your 8.13 instance. And what you'll see there is the differences between the two files, and see that, okay, these are all the custom settings that I've added to my instance. And what I recommend doing at first is grabbing all of those custom settings and creating one single large patch file. And when you do that and you apply it to your local instance to make sure that the patching works, you're going to see like some errors happen that you don't expect. Also, my apologies for the background noise. There is a thunderstorm happening. Perfect timing for a.
My power just went out, so I was worried it was going to go out for you too.
Oh boy. So, fingers crossed. If not, I will join on my phone's like cell service. But anyways, so as I was saying, you've created this one large patch file. You're going to run through errors as you're applying this patch file to your local instance. So what I would do is add them one setting at a time, just to make sure to figure out which one's giving you the error. And if you're like me, who is a consultant, I have a deadline to make sure I get through the entire upgrade process in a very quick time. You can have one large patch file for now to make sure get through the upgrade process, and then afterwards, after the upgrade process is completely done, then you can go through and separate the patch file into multiple patch files if you want to make for better organization. Next up, dependency injection changes. There really isn't that much exciting information to talk about here, but it's something that you'll have to do. So what I recommend is that you stop using third-party tools for dependency injection like Castle Windsor and Simple Injector, and convert on over to using .NET's DI. I find Microsoft's implementation of this to be very straightforward. They have good documentation. There's like 3 different methods for injecting a service, like add transient, add singleton, and something else off the top of my head. I can't remember, but it's very, very easy to use. And it's part of my architectural recommendation that we're going to get to later on this presentation, and it's that to lessen your reliance on third-party tools. So we'll get a little deeper into that here in a second, but main point of this slide, convert to using Microsoft tools. So this is probably, in my opinion, the hardest part of an upgrade project. But your experience may vary because some solutions are easier than others to update their code. So the first thing that you're going to need to do in a Sitecore upgrade regarding your code is update the .NET target framework of your projects to the appropriate version. There is a compatibility chart offered by Sitecore. So if you just Google Sitecore compatibility table, the top result should be a giant chart involving all of the compatible versions of different things for different Sitecore versions, and then on there is the .NET target framework. So after updating that setting, you'll want to connect to the Sitecore NuGet feed, and then uninstall the current Sitecore NuGet packages and install the newer versions of those NuGet packages that is compatible with the version that you're jumping to. So after upgrading those NuGet references, you will then need to peruse through all of the code in your solution and make sure that your Sitecore API calls and implementations are still supported by the newer version of Sitecore. If not, that's a little bad news. You're just going to have to adjust your code accordingly in order for your site to function like it did on the old version. I would also take the time to make sure there were no sneaky Sitecore references installed on various projects. And what I mean by that is making sure that that no projects were given a reference to a Sitecore package not via NuGet. This usually happens in very old Sitecore solutions before NuGet was a thing, but I've had issues where I've deployed entire solutions. I thought I updated the NuGet package for all the projects that needed it, but that wasn't the case. There were some sneaky installs. So you'll want to clean those up and then reinstall the package references via NuGet for those that didn't have it. You will also need to follow almost the exact same steps as the Sitecore NuGet packages for the non-Sitecore NuGet packages. However, this is where things get icky. Some of your dependencies may not have a NuGet package version that is compatible with the newer version of Sitecore or the newer version of .NET that you're going to. So what do you do then? You have a few options. Some of them are bad options, but they're options nonetheless. You can wait to do your upgrade process until the NuGet package is available for that dependency. And though that may never come if the dependency is no longer being maintained. And even if it is being maintained still, it may not be available in the time that you're given to complete the upgrade. So that's not really an option. Let's throw that out. This leaves you with 2 other options. You have the option to download the current version of the dependency and make it compatible with the new version of Sitecore yourself. Or the final, I would say, nuclear option is just completely removing the dependency from the solution and implementing your own code to perform the function that you're dealing with that third-party tool. I don't recommend that. I think it's just much easier to update the dependency yourself and roll with that. So, as I mentioned on the dependency injection slide, this kind of brings me to my main architectural recommendation to make Sitecore upgrades easier in the future, to make those upgrade paths even shorter. And to do that, I recommend you lessen your reliance on third-party code as much as you can. The less third-party dependencies you have, the less you have to deal with all the issues I just talked about. Third-party tools are really out of your control. They can change drastically, thus causing your upgrade path to be that much harder. You don't know what goes on with this third-party tool. You don't know the inner workings. If you consider it a black box and they change how that black box works, you may be out of luck. One particular third-party tool that we're going to talk about here in the next slide that's prevalent in a lot of solutions is the use of an ORM. And in particular, in this presentation, we'll talk about Glass Mapper, but I'm sure this applies to other ORMs as well. So, Shakespeare once asked, to keep ORM or not to keep ORM, I think. So, I think it's a good question. You're going to have two paths, and they're literally in the question. Get rid of it or upgrade it. And in an ideal world, I say it would be a no-brainer to upgrade the ORM to keep all of your implementations intact with little updating to your code. Also, in an ideal world, all solutions are architected well, thus making upgrades for, say, Glass Mapper very straightforward. Unfortunately, I'm a pessimist, and in my opinion, we're not in that ideal world. The newer versions of the ORM may remove methods it previously supported. Your code base may require some serious updating to work around these now obsolete functions. So let's dive a little deeper into that. For example, the changes between Glass Mapper 4 and Glass Mapper 5 are significant. The Glass controller no longer exists in Glass Mapper 5. If all of your controllers are dependent upon using this controller, or say maybe you have more third-party tools that are dependent upon using Glass Mapper in a certain way, maybe, you're going to have to find a workaround. Other changes, such as the removal of the isLazy decorator, could call for sweeping changes throughout your code, especially for components that required auto-mapping tons of child items. The point I'm trying to make here is that upgrading an ORM may not even be worth your time. Even after getting your code to successfully compile using the upgraded ORM, you'll then have to heavily test your sites to make sure the site's behavior is still the same as before. Just because it compiles doesn't mean it's going to function the same. And in my opinion, troubleshooting and diagnosing issues attributed to your ORM, that's a tongue twister a little bit, it can be quite difficult. You're trying to discern, is this a problem with a DLL I'm deploying from Sitecore? Is this an issue with the ORM? Is this some random front-end issue that's not working? Removing a piece of the puzzle by just getting rid of the ORM lessens the potential suspects that you have that are causing issues on your site. So let's avoid this headache by getting rid of an ORM. It may seem like a tall order. After all, it would, if you're heavily dependent upon it in your solution, it would require updating pretty much every component to get rid of it. However, I would argue that once you get the development pattern down for removing it from one component, it becomes pretty easy, mindless work to plow through. Just put on some music, maybe some lo-fi if you're into that, just code away. So back to that main point, lessen your reliance on third-party tools. Getting rid of this will make it so you have one less dependency to consider to upgrade and one less dependency to deal with later on. It also prevents having to wade through obscure issues that you don't know if it's ORM or not. So my question for you is, if the ORM upgrade is going to require a lot of code rewrite, why not go ahead and do a lot of code rewrite by removing it and just relying purely on the Sitecore API? So to convince you of my viewpoint, I say, let's take a look at an example. So a nice benefit of using an ORM is that it allows you to map content authored data on an item to a strongly typed C# object very easily. That's something it does very well. So you can see here in this example, when I call MVC context.get data source item, and I'm casting it to this sample glass object, I'm going to get the content authored title, text, and description for free. It's all on one line. I just call it, I get it for free. Very simple, right? And that's kind of why you would want to use an ORM. Let's take a look at what it would look like if you removed the use of an ORM. All you would have to do is retrieve the values manually using the Sitecore API. You can assign those values to properties in the model to make your own strongly typed model if you wish. Very easy, in my opinion. But again, this would require a lot of code rewrite in your solution. But to counter that, I still would say that this mundane, busy work is so much easier than dealing with ORM complexities. Oops, I went too far. So another thing to think about is that you're using the class helpers in the view and your CS/HTML files to make things editable very easily. When I was very new to Sitecore, I was like, oh no, that must be really hard to replace. No, it's not. It's really not that difficult to switch over to using the Sitecore API to keep those fields editable. I recommend employing custom edit frames, custom experience buttons, Sitecore's HTML helpers that they provide. You can also, on your strongly typed model, where you're retrieving all these values, you can retrieve them as type I HTML string, and then they're still going to be editable in the experience editor. So I think that's the way to go. And my throat's getting dry, so I'm going to sip on some water real quick. Now that everyone has awkwardly watched me swallow some water, let's move on to another change I want to talk about, search provider changes. And this is kind of the last part of the upgrade process that I really want to emphasize. If you are keeping the same search provider, for example, Solar to Solar, your code's not going to change much. All you have to do is stand up the newer version of the search provider that you're already using and make sure that the configs still work. If you're changing search providers, however, that's where the effort starts to come in. So if you're going from Lucene to Solar, you're going to have to create those Solar config files that are slightly different from Lucene, but it's not a crazy amount of effort. And then if you're using the content search API, your code's not going to change much because Sitecore abstracts how those calls are made to Lucene or to Solar. So there should be minimal changes there. Also, ignore my cat. She likes to bother me at the end of the day saying I'm at the computer too much. Okay, Annie, move. What you're going to need to watch out for, however, is when you switch search providers, is making sure that the new search provider and the version that you're jumping to provides all the support that you need to support. For example, on a project. I had moved from Lucene to Solar, and I moved to Solar 6.6.2. And that specific version doesn't contain out-of-the-box support for Chinese languages. So part of the upgrade process and what we found was that we need to implement this because the previous site functionality had Chinese support. You don't want to lose support as you're going through the upgrade process. So keep that in mind. It's something that we didn't recognize was going to be an issue when we first started the upgrade process. And it really sucks to find these surprises like this late into the upgrade process because it causes delays, and you don't want to upset anyone with that. So I have this last line here, Solar to Azure Search. Just don't. Azure Search is being deprecated in Sitecore 10 onwards, so you really need to advise your company or your clients to not consider using Azure Search. It's going to make future upgrades pretty painful, because then you're going to have to move from Azure Search back to Solar or maybe some other search provider. So I would completely recommend against switching from Azure Search to Azure Search. Let's say you're forced to. Here's the complexities you're going to have to deal with. 1,000 field limit, a max upload batch size, all of these things that are kind of nuanced and really hard to recognize, because if you're coming from the Solar world, you're like, this should just work, and it doesn't. So Azure Search is kind of a black box. Just don't. That's my best advice there. So to wrap things up on what's involved in the Sitecore upgrade process.
Hey, Zach.
Yes.
Sorry, do you want me to chime in and just provide some insights about
Yes.
search on containers?
Yes.
All right. So we recently did an upgrade to Sitecore 10.1 on containers, and they're using Coveo. So I know the search provider now you're mentioning here is different. Definitely we're using Solar for that. And we use search stacks, was really good. But I mean, there was unexpected amount of issues with Coveo on the containers. It's not supported. So we had to really work closely with Coveo to rectify and remedy and, you know, bug fix and support Coveo Cloud for containers. It was a painful process. It was done after all. But I mean, be careful if you want to do an upgrade to containers and you have Coveo, just, you know, reach out to Coveo before.
That, and you had some really tough upgrades.
Yeah, very, yeah.
That
So,
sounds
yeah,
miserable.
just wanted to add that it might be beneficial for the group.
Yes,
Can
and
I ask?
go for it.
Sorry to interrupt, Zach. Can I ask, like, what do you mean by I'm just thinking more like a package install and should work, or do you think that's going to be too much on the Coveo migration?
I mean, Coveo with containers, with Kubernetes services, it just produced a lot of issues because Coveo doesn't support that yet. So this is the complexity that you just need to be careful about.
Thanks for the heads up. We are working on one. Probably we'll get in touch.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to connect you with the, you know, with the team lead and the architect who did that, so it can provide you with some insights.
Yeah, thanks, man.
No worries.
So things like that, just like the code updates, you need to, when you do kind of an investigation, you want to check to make sure that has all the functionality that you're doing. That's a good point. You want to check your search provider and make sure that it's going to have all the features that you want to support. Nabil, if you had known that Coveo wasn't supported on containers, do you think you would have waited to do the upgrade, or just did the route that you did anyways?
I would have actually upgraded, but not on containers. I mean, don't get me wrong. After all, we're live. The site is super fast with containers. It's for like a public health organization, and they have tons of traffic on during COVID right now, and the site is like blistering fast on containers, and the cost of the hosting is less. It's worth it, but I mean, it was very painful, and it cost them a lot because of the complexity. We learned a lot, but Covea was not ready for containers, and it was painful. So
that's unfortunate. Yeah, I just rolled onto my first project using containers in Sitecore, and I've been really excited about it because it's been so much better to set up a local environment and whatnot. So
it is.
I agree. For the local, yes.
Yes, it's been so much better. I think the fact that you already went through that pain and whatnot, I think future developers that get onto that project or are maintaining that will really appreciate that you did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like after you go over all these hurdles and you fix the issues, it's just amazing. Especially also the DevOps process and the CI/CD. It just
so when are the blog articles coming?
The whole image. Sorry?
When are the blog articles coming so that when I jump onto containers, I can get a lot of that help?
Sure, man. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
And other people in the community. I mean, that's like,
Chris, this presentation's about Sitecore upgrades, not Content Hub.
So Content Hub is already in containers. It's ahead of Sitecore. It's beyond, right? It's already using containers.
Yeah, no, but what Zach is saying, you can't speak if it's not Content Hub.
Hey,
well, I mean, even better than that, Chris. I think we should do a presentation about containers soon. So maybe you'll do like a session here about containers on 10.1. I'll talk to Barat and team.
Chris has no response. So anyways.
Okay.
To kind of wrap this whole upgrade presentation up, I think an important question needed to ask is, how long will an upgrade take? How long do you need to communicate to your clients or your company's executives? How much effort is this going to take? How much money is this going to cost? So it's an important thing to say here that, again, every upgrade path is unique because your solutions are unique. So listed here is how long each phase will likely take, where one sprint is equal to 2 weeks. And major disclaimer, these estimations are for jumping major Sitecore versions on large code bases. So at the beginning of any upgrade process, I recommend that you spend 2 weeks making decisions on how you will do the upgrade. This investigation phase should include what dependencies you want to remove or upgrade, what your infrastructure will look like. Are you going to containers? Are you going to PaaS? Are you going to SaaS? Answer all of those questions in this investigation phase. You will also need to spend, I would say, at least 2 sprints to make sure that your infrastructure setup goes well and you can deal with the myriad of issues that you run into there, such as user access issues to various servers, whitelisting IPs, making sure that certificates are good, and stuff like that. The nitty-gritty stuff that once you do it once, you don't think about it again until those certificates expire and your site's down. So that happens. So I would also highly recommend a testing and bug remediation phase. 2 sprints may be excessive here, I'll admit, but what you're going to need to do is have users go in and test the site, and these users need to be very familiar with the site. if you're a consultant coming into a random client's website, you're not going to know how it functions. You don't know the site. You don't know if things function exactly as they did before. So it's very crucial that you include these 2 sprints so that once you've deployed all of this code to like a test server, someone can go in and verify that, yes, this is what we're expecting. Sometimes bugs don't come up till later. I mean, it happens because you're just looking at the same site. But however, the major functionality is going to be obvious that if it's not working. So all in all, if you total this up, that adds up to 4 months of time. This 4 months may seem extreme, but it encompasses running into any possible bug that causes a lot of issues. Maybe it's even more major than a bug, like what Nabil was saying, that Coveo wasn't supported on containers. That's a huge thing, and it's not something that you're going to expect before going into this upgrade process. I was having trouble with an upgrade one time, and I went directly to my director, and I was like, this is painful. There's no way people will do this all the time and go through these upgrades. And I think he offered a piece of advice that I think is very good for and applies directly to the upgrade process. There's a guy named Rumsfeld. If you're in American politics around 9/11, he was a major player there. Regardless if you hate him, like him, he has a quote here that applies, and it goes something like, there are known knowns, there are unknown knowns, and there are unknown unknowns. So going into an upgrade, you're going to know that, okay, I need to update my search provider. I need to update my code. I need to upgrade the database. But you're going to run into issues that you completely did not expect. And that happens. You're doing the upgrade. You're trusted to do the upgrade correctly. And it's up to you to communicate these unknown unknowns as soon as you run into them. Yeah, they're painful to deal with, and I think it's expected to run into the unexpected in the upgrade process. So you may have to talk a lot with Sitecore because your issue may be specific to your upgrade. So that's why I make this 4-month projection. Yes?
Yeah, I would like to add a point on this note. Like you said, we did an upgrade to 9.3. And at that time, it was like 9 was all new, 9.1, I think, not 9.3, 9.1. And we ended up logging 6 product bugs with Sitecore. So it was just an upgrade. And we started finding issues, and we go back to them. They're like, oh, that seems to be an issue. We'll give you a patch. And you won't believe it was 6 bugs, and it was all like basic stuff. And we were like breaking our head thinking that our upgrade went wrong. There is an issue. And then finally they'll be like, oh, this is fine. Yeah, we can fix it, kind of. So be prepared for that unknown and to have a good, fun conversation with Sitecore support.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that point up, because as you're going through the upgrade process, you've upgraded the Sitecore NuGet packages, you're deploying this custom code. There comes a breaking point where you need to say, okay, this is enough time of me debugging this issue. I'm not going to solve this. Let's send this over to Sitecore support and see what they say. It may be something on Sitecore's end that they need to address with a patch or something. But you won't know unless if you open up a Sitecore support ticket for that case. So you need to kind of decide with your team, how long do you allow yourself to look at a problem before opening a Sitecore support ticket? In my case, there was, I opened up, I think, 3 Sitecore support tickets for my last upgrade. And the first one, I waited like a week. That was way too long. If you've gone into it for like a couple days, go ahead and start file the support ticket and keep debugging while you're getting waiting for a response from Sitecore. I think you can really cause some money wasting if you spend too much time doing that. So use Sitecore support. So I'm going to add another disclaimer here, or kind of walk back on my point. So I did say here 4 months of time to be completely satisfied with the upgrade. Jumping smaller Sitecore versions with no significant code base changes can be completed in as little time as 1 to 2 sprints.
What was the fastest upgrade that anybody did on Sitecore?
So I was reading, someone said in the Sitecore Slack that they had done it in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was like, holy cow, that's really fast. Someone at Perficient, you may know her, Wendy Durstein, did one in a month, and I was really impressed with that. She's at Sitecore now, I believe. But it can be really fast. But I think in order to determine how fast it is, you really need to have that investigation phase. Because without it, you're kind of jumping in blind, and then people are expecting results, and you're not going to have any because you're still trying to decide, do I keep the class? Do I remove it? And stuff like that. Like, you need to make those decisions before you even start. Don't try to figure it out as you go along. Make all the decisions before, and then if you run into these unknowns, then you can kind of right the ship into the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach, to your point, it all depends on how clean the implementation is, how Helix is followed or not followed, how complex, how much best practices was followed. The fastest upgrade we've done in the history of Tech Guilds was 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, but the solution was like, on the client side, there was an architect who's very, very meticulous about every line of code. Like, the solution is like sparkling clean.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And we literally like did completed the whole upgrade in 2 weeks. It was like, whoa. So it makes a big difference.
I want to do.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we just a funny statement here. We did a 10.1 to 10, the minor version. We just did a Docker compose down an app, and it's done. Just changing one variable. So I wish that days would come soon.
That's why I'm like full approval what Nabila did, which was move the containers. I think having containers and then going through the process that you just said, Bala, that like it's so much easier, and like this presentation becomes unneeded because it's not painful at that point, and it's so great. So I hope from this presentation you can take away some things about lessening your reliance on third-party tools, and being very mindful of your architectural decisions early on can really pay off when it comes to upgrading. I think an issue that happens all too often is that a solution's very old, say it's 4 years old, and you come into this solution and things at first seem very well architected, and you're like, this looks good, this looks fine, but there's so much, like, after people have stopped caring about the solution as much, kind of hack jobs that are done for very random things that you don't expect because you're looking at the solution as a whole, so you aren't seeing kind of the small trees in the forest. And those are the things that really cause a lot of headache during the upgrade process. So I think it's very important to stay vigilant, even when the site is functioning just fine and you're maybe tweaking some features here and there. Like, you need to make sure that you're following best practices with those and not just trying to get by with what's easiest at the time. So
exactly.
Did you say Zachary or exactly?
Exactly. No, not that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I wrote a full blog series about this. So if you want to either look back at the recording of this or skip right to reading what I've written about this topic, it's out there. Just Google Sitecore upgrade Zach or Zachary. And
That's your nickname.
yeah, Zachary. I hate it when people say exactly. I'm like, every time I'm like, yes. Cool. But in this blog series, spoiler alert, I did keep glass, even though I'm saying recommending against it. I did keep glass for one of the solutions I upgraded. And instead of dealing with a lot of stuff, I wrote my own glass replacement controller. Really what it does is it takes version 4's glass controller and makes it compatible with the latest version of .NET, or a version that's compatible with Sitecore 9.2. That's not the latest version. I just lied. But the code should work with Glass 5. So take a look there if you want that. And I also include some more tips and tricks that are a little more nitty gritty, that are not important to go over in a presentation, but they're there nonetheless. And I think they'll help you save some time as you upgrade. So thanks for having me. And I'll open the floor to any questions or any monologues about the pains of Sitecore upgrades. I like to share pain, so misery loves company.
Hey, Zach, would you mind going back to the slide about replacing ORM? Yeah, that one. The post ORM one. So I get where you're coming from, but I'd like to make one other recommendation. There are code generation tools out there. I think it's probably not the best practice to have strings in here, because if a template ever changes, it doesn't get updated. So I'd recommend having some sort of way of generating models based off of templates, not naming anything in particular. But using kind of models like that is probably my recommended path.
I think that's a very good point. At the very least, if you don't do that, make sure you create maybe like a constants file or a templates file that contains the GUIDs of the fields that you're using, and don't do like a hard-coded header, for example.
Exactly.
Definitely don't do that. But this was just purely to make it a little more digestible, but that is a very good point, Ben.
Yeah, there isn't. Now I'm going to plug something. There is an out-of-the-box template for Leprechaun that does, essentially it creates POCO models where you don't need an ORM or anything, but it wraps all of the templates, so you can just kind of pass in objects without actually using an ORM.
I was laughing because for some reason, I remember I associated you with synthesis, and I thought Leprechaun for a second, it crossed paths, but I remember you were a big synthesis guy. I'm not sure if you still are anymore.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah?
I held my tongue on that previous slide.
So I think
there are some ORMs out there that handle backwards compatibility really, really, really well.
I guess I want to be very clear here. Maybe I've had some painful experiences with upgrading glass, and maybe that's due to architectural decisions that were made on the project I was on. And Neil Shack definitely put me in my place, and deservedly so. He made the point that, like, if the solution is architected well, upgrading glass or any other ORM is very easy. And he made a very good point with that. I am jaded from my experiences, so maybe I'm putting that misery out there. I think it's a decision you need to make when you go through the investigation phase and check out all of the components and be like, yeah, this is architected well. It's going to be minimal code changes to remove glass or keep glass. Let's keep it. And that's totally fine. Like ORMs are very elegant. Like Glass is very good at what it does, so I would understand why you would want to keep it. In my experience, it's been easier to just wholeheartedly just remove it. Again, that's an opinion, definitely not fact.
I do agree with you. ORMs though aren't really necessary anymore. At the same time, not all. What the point I was trying to make? Not all. It's not always painful.
It's not always painful, and that's definitely the case. I think, again, my experiences have colored that. I'm sure others have had better experiences. Therefore, I don't trust anyone. I trust no one.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I'm
Yeah,
kinda curious
actually,
to- Go ahead.
he's like, this is Wayne.
Hi.
Hey, Nabil,
Hey, Wayne.
Dennis. Yeah, nice
How
to
you
meet
doing,
you
man?
guys. Yeah,
Good, good. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time, Zach. Actually, in my past experience upgrade, almost every time it was pain. So, you know, I think it totally depends on your project, right? So if too much custom module or third-party module, so your code remediation, will be a lot. And then your regression test will be a lot, and takes a longer time. And also I did the Glass upgrade as well. I found it's not that hard to upgrade from one version to another, but the impact is huge because it touches almost code. So the regression test has to be thorough to make sure everything is still okay, right? So actually, Zach, I have a question for upgrade from version 9 to 10. Like, is this a topic very particular in general, or is it just 9 under 10, or is also 9 to 10? I haven't done that upgrade from 9 to 10, but I like to know like any difference or any challenge from 9 to 10.
Yeah. So you're gonna hate my answer, but the answer is it depends. Like the database upgrades bit, that applies directly here. Your search provider changes, that applies directly here. Your code updates, that also applies. But if you're switching to Docker, for example, or containers in Sitecore 10, you're gonna have to think about how you're deploying code to upper environments, how you're setting up your solution, and like it's more of an infrastructure task at that point for those things. So that would be the main challenges that you run into there. Nabil, I don't know if you have anything to add there since you have legitimate experience in that.
No. So for example, Sitecore 10 in the production environment is still on premise, for example, but the local we can go with the doc, right? So any difference here, or production has to go to container. So production can be on premises like before, right?
Sorry, do you mean like if you have a container locally, you can just deploy normally on production?
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. The whole solution is different when you're working with Kubernetes services. It has to be with containers on your local and your QA and your UAT and your production. Because every time you deploy, you need to destroy the image and redeploy the whole container, the whole image with the new code, new configuration, new everything. Dennis, go ahead.
So even affect the DevOps CI/CD process.
Oh yeah, it's a whole different process. DevOps with containers is like a completely new process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, I will dig more.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. If you still have, sorry.
No. I'm just saying it looks like very different. So I may dig some more by myself. I just try to get an overall feeling like upgrade Sitecore 10. Lots of challenge are very different or very similar to previous version. Yeah, that's what I want to do.
But I mean, listen, you don't have to go the container route. You can upgrade to just Sitecore 10.1 normally, outside of containers.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an option. It was a stretch when we went to containers. So, Dennis, you have something to add? Go ahead. You have your hand
Yeah, no, it's not to add to that. I mean, I think, well, to add to that, I mean, I would say that many of the points that Zach raised about things to consider will apply. I mean, the search provider issues and all the other things are still going to be relevant, whatever version you're running are going to. But I'll leave the matter of containers versus not, and the environments to folks more familiar with the DevOps thing than I. But rather than that question for Zach, I'm actually just curious to hear from everybody here. I know that we're now on Sitecore 10 plus, and my sense is that probably about half of Sitecore customers are probably on an 8-something version. And I wonder how many people here are either working at a place or, are working with customers who are still on 8-somethings. And, what do you feel is the resistance to that? I think that perhaps that for, by my calculations, 5 months, Zach, that would take to upgrade might be part of the issue. But yeah, so how many people here are still on, on 8 or earlier, or your customers are on 8 or earlier, and what's the reasons for the upgrade hesitancy, that I might say? And anybody on a 6 or earlier still? Is anybody out here on 6, 7?
7, yes. Just mentioned, 7.1, one of the customers who got hacked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. The one you mentioned at the beginning. It was 7. Yeah.
And we have a couple of other customers on 8s, and I think from my perspective, the resistance to upgrade is always cost, because it's the more painful the process is, the more money is going to cost them to upgrade, and usually this upgrade is not very visible to marketing or to user. It's just like something under the hood. You need to spend like, I don't know, $200,000 to upgrade, and then what? Like maybe some new features, of course, and it's not very visible to the business value. And also for new features, you would need to also train your staff, and something that they're really used to. Now you're moving their cheese kind of thing, and you need to train them and get them used to it. So yeah, I think like this is what from my experience, but I'm curious to hear from the audience as well.
We had a couple of clients. One of the clients were inclined towards moving to 9, basically for the forms features that they were liking for. They were interested to do that mainly because they had close to 200 plus forms running on ASP.NET. So they want that to be integrated into Sitecore. So that was one case. The other client, they were on 8 point something, and they really did not want to spend money on upgrading. Everything is stable. I don't even want to touch this. And the same way Nabil said, like they don't really see under the hood if something is changing. Like I visibly don't see it. And even they made a comment of, we are even thinking of moving to WordPress or something because this is expensive and we really don't use it to that potential. One other client, there was a proposal on upgrading to 10, and with all the new bells and whistles, and the client, like the developer, the lead, and everybody were excited, but they couldn't get that approved with the client because of the budget constraints again. With the upgrade and the amount of money they need to spend, everything is working fine now. Why do you really want to spend this money? And what are we getting as a business back?
Yeah, and on that point, the clients are comparing upgrading and spending the money on upgrading versus actually moving to like a SaaS CMS that you don't have to upgrade. And you may spend the same amount of money migrating your Sitecore implementation to a SaaS CMS versus spending it on upgrading.
Exactly.
That's I have a client who actually went down that path, and some other clients that we convinced them to actually upgrade, but with the upgrade, we migrated to JSS, to headless. And that's like a very good use case for, to add like more business value. You're not just upgrading the latest version, but also you're moving to more modern implementation where you decouple from your CMS now, after that point, moving to any other CMS is easier and less costly if you don't want to stay with Sitecore. So, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I think that this also brings up is, if you're on a 7 or an 8, you're probably a few years old in terms of your license. So now you have, most likely, in many cases, I should say, not most likely, but in many cases, you have the decision to go from perpetual licensing to subscription licensing. And that comes with a hefty tag as well. So I'm just putting that out there if anybody's had that experience and whether that has been a hindrance to you as well. And I think I'm really just trying to get some sound bites. So hopefully somebody at Sitecore hears this Sitecore user group meeting and hears it from you. So if you do have sound bites with regards to the hesitancy for costs and or the move from perpetual to subscription, please do join me and voice them now, because I've seen this as well.
We got burnt with one of those upgrades where the cost was significantly higher when you go with the perpetual license. But the client was fine with that. It's not a big deal for them. But the other client, like you said, they have a fixed cost and everything, and getting an upgrade is one pain. And then the second point is where you get into this licensing cost. So most of the clients are not even crossing that first phase of getting that approved from their clients or the higher management. And if they cross that, the next hindrance would be on this. The kind of like when you go and ask, I need new license, and they're going to force you to do that to support.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments, pain points to share? I feel like we're doing the startup now, like naturally towards the end of the the meeting. So please feel free to just jump in and share your experience.
Yeah, that's a good segue, actually.
Yeah, go ahead, Sana.
Nobody has any questions. Maybe you can start the stand-up. And for anyone who hasn't been on those successions, stand-up is where you share a little bit of news, a little bit of exciting work that you have been doing with Sitecore. We have discussed recently that maybe we let people who would like to share raise their hands, their virtual hands, and then we can go take turns. So whoever is ready to share some bit of news about Sitecore and what they're working on, please go ahead and raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll have